Welcome to Inside Eastern Utah. We are here doing a political series again.
Yes.
We are in the middle of a campaign. Well, we're coming up onto a campaign season, I guess. Primaries in June. But today we're here with Ryan Murray, who is running for Carbon County Commission.
That's correct.
And currently, Ryan, you are the director of the Small Business Development Center, and you run the Custom Fit program, which is a great program. We've taken advantage of it before. So.
Yeah.
It's a nice program to take advantage of, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about Carbon County and the race for commission. It's a popular race this year.
It is a popular race. Yeah, quite a few people put their
Names
name
in the hat.
and
That's right.
I think that's excellent. And so
Yeah.
Now, specifically in your run for county commissioner, what would you want to accomplish if you're elected?
So my top priority is going to focus on jobs, economic growth. We need to bring more into the county. And, I've got a background in economic development. I work with businesses. I've been doing that for well over a decade. And so I have a lot of experience in that. And there is so much opportunity on the table that we're just not capturing. And so if I had the opportunity to come in that leadership position and really provide some direction to that, that would be my top priority. Is just jobs, economic growth. We have the businesses, the local small businesses that are, they're growing right now. We hear a lot about, the county's shrinking, we're losing, tax base, we're losing population. Whereas those are true, the amount of opportunity and the amount of investment going into the private sector right now is signaling growth. And so if we seize the growth, if we actually take advantage of that opportunity, we're well positioned to do so. But it's going to require us to actually do things a little bit differently. It's going to require to take advantage of those things. We can't rely on some of the traditional methods that that historically have worked well. But we're in a new economy, so that would be my top priority. Second priority would be focusing on the budget. We've had some budget issues. There was I'm going to just call it the tax fiasco that happened in the fall. That it upset a lot of the residents, and I think justified in being upset over that. And so better management of the budget. I have a degree in finance. I do financial trainings. I actually contract with a lot of universities, economic development offices throughout the state of Utah to have me come in and train their businesses, their employees on finance. And so I would take that skill set and I would translate it to our budget and say, okay, what can we do to actually better manage this budget? It's going to boil down to planning. It's going to boil down to having a strategy in place, making sure that we're not being reactive, but that we're actually seeing what's coming ahead and planning for it and adjusting as necessary. And then the third priority would be the communication, the partnerships. I don't think we do as well as we could or should with partnering. When you talk to the city leadership and the county leadership, those are not strong partnerships. In fact, our neighbor to the south, Embry County, we don't have strong partnerships that we need to have. We are a regional area, and it's ridiculous for us to think that we're an island, that we can isolate ourselves. No, we need to partner with these people. We need to partner with the business leaders. You've got really successful business leaders who they know what they're doing, they have great ideas, and they feel excluded from the conversation. And so I look at that and I'm like, we need to bring them into the conversation. We need to work on those partnerships. So top priorities would be job growth, economic development, finance, the budget, and then communication and partnerships.
Perfect.
One
Yeah,
question
go ahead.
real quick, if I can piggyback on top of that first question I asked. So obviously your position with the Small Business Development Center gives you avenues to be working with these businesses and what you have done so far. What would the leg up, I guess, be in the commission seat? Why would it be even better for you to be at that county government level to be helping these businesses? Why would that be better than just the position you're in now?
Sure. So at the Small Business Development Center, we focus on working with the individual business, but we don't create an overall strategic plan for the area. We don't get in and say, hey, we need to diversify our economy, or we need to focus on, industry sections or areas that, could have potential growth. What we do is we go in with the individual business business and we say, okay, let's develop your marketing strategy, let's develop your
Okay.
competitive advantage. And so at the commission level, and what's really important to me is to say, what are we doing at a broader level? Where's the strategy? Where's the strategic planning? Where is the overall big picture view of putting all the pieces together?
Okay, great, thank you.
So Brian, if you were to become a member of that commission, and it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into this prior to running, I'm sure, and then even now, but say you heard about something in the community that's concerning. There are lots of things that concern all of us, and this is particularly concerning to you. What steps would you take as a commissioner to resolve that concern and to keep people in the county, to keep your constituents kind of involved in resolving that concern?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think we get a little bit carried away with is people get into a leadership position and they start feeling like, they're the go-to person, that they, immediately have the answer, or people are expecting a solution from them. And I think that, yes, there needs to be strong, assertive leadership, but that doesn't mean that you're the person with all the answers. And so I think one of the first steps that needs to happen is, if there's a concern, whatever that concern might be, is to seek out the experts in that arena and get that expert input and get that feedback, and be a little less snappy in judgments or decisions, and focus more on saying, okay, these are people who know what they're doing. Let's get their input. Let's trust what they're telling us, and do a more of a collaborative decision-making process. I think that there's a lot of frustration with people in the community where they don't feel like they're getting their voice is not being heard, that when they bring issues or concerns up, that sometimes there's almost a dismissive attitude that they feel, and whether that's real or perceived, it still is real to them. And so I think we can do better of getting out there and saying, okay, let's talk about these issues, let's see what's going on, let's get a little bit more engaged, networking, connecting, and that does go to that communication point that is really important to me.
I think that's just good business planning overall, is to say, you know what, let the people that are experts I'm going to take care of what I know and what I'm good at, and let's bring in people who are good at things I'm not.
Yeah, and even at the county level, you have a lot of county employees, and the commission, it's a rough spot because you're overseeing a lot of areas, and I don't care who you are and I don't care what your background is, you're not going to be the expert in all of those areas.
Right.
And so if you can't trust the people that you put in place, if you can't rely on them, then you're not really doing effective leadership. And so, I think relying on, the people that you've put in place to do the job.
Of course. And speaking of concerns, I think a big one for a lot of people in the community is the energy industry. What, if anything, do you think could invigorate that industry here?
So I'm going to take a very different approach on that. And I personally don't believe that should be one of the top priorities of the commissioners, is to try and invigorate the energy industry. Here's why. I love coal. I love the fact that we are Carbon County, and so I have no issues with that. But that industry is going to, it's a mature industry. And so from a business perspective, if you were just to do strategic business planning, if you have a mature industry, that's not the opportunity when you come in and you make change and you adjust things. It's the time where you come in and identify, where that industry is and what direction it's going. So I think that part of our plan needs to factor in, okay, what is happening in this industry. But if we don't diversify, our economy, if we just try and focus on energy, then we're going to be in a boom and bust economy. And truthfully, there's an attack on coal. It's an uphill battle with very poor potential results. So why don't we diversify? Why don't we allow that industry to do what it's already doing, because it's a mature industry, and why don't we diversify into some of these up and coming things? I mean, I look at the use of technology in other areas, and I'm like, why aren't we using technology to really diversify into, you know, those sectors of industry? Why aren't we doing things where, you know, I love some of the conversation of, you know, some of the side things that can be done with coal, but that's a lot of R&D talk, and I'm okay with research and development, but that's not a solid strategy. And so I think we need to be a lot more solid. We need to diversify, and, you know, I think we'll see a lot more success if we, you know, play it smart, if we're strategic, if we plan, and if we don't put all of our eggs in one basket and that basket goes up and down.
Yeah. Good answer. So, hey, we talked a little bit about your background already, what you do for a living, and I want you to tell us and our viewers what experience you have that you think has prepared you to be a good public servant. Now you're not working in the private sector anymore as a commissioner. You're going to be serving your community. So
Sure.
let's talk about that.
So there are several levels that the commission needs to relate with. They need to relate with the citizen. They need to relate with the business owner. They need to relate with government at various different levels. One of the advantages that I've had is my role allows me to already do this. So this isn't a new arena for me. I work with the local businesses. I provide trainings to the people in the community. And so I'm out and about. I understand what the needs are of, you know, just the residents here of Carbon County. I understand what it's like to, you know, pay bills and have to, you know, take care of a mortgage and take care of kids and get them to soccer practice and those kinds of things. But at the same token, I also, working for Utah State University, I understand a lot of the, you know, bureaucracy that goes on. I understand how the negotiations need to happen. I understand how those type of budgets work. I have to oversee state budgets. I have to work with, you know, federal grant monies. And so I'm already familiar with that process, and it can be a frustrating process for someone who's never dealt with that before. You know, my connections with, you know, the state, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. You know, I sit on a lot of boards. I'm on the, you know, I'm current president of the Chamber of Commerce. I also sit on the board for Embry, their Chamber of Commerce, and you know, so a lot of just opportunity to work with those different groups. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths that I have, is not too many people have had that. You know, they probably cover one group or maybe two groups, but to be able to really cover all of those groups, to be, you know, to be able to be sitting there in front of the governor and giving him a presentation and hearing that, you know, the presentation that came out of Carbon County was one of the best presentations of all the counties that, you know, that presented. I know this arena. I'm comfortable in this arena, and it's not, you know, it's not an intimidating arena for me.
Great. Well, one last question before we let you go, kind of a rapid fire one. What do you consider the most critical issue facing the county to be, and how do you plan on working to resolve that issue?
County's in decline. We're losing tax base, we're losing population, and if we don't turn that around, no amount of planning or budgeting is going to fix that. And that goes back to my top priority of jobs and growth.
Great. Well, we thank you so much for your time. I know we didn't have a lot of it, so we appreciate you sharing as much
Absolutely.
as you could. And be sure to vote. Primaries are coming up. The early voting is coming up as well. Get out there and vote. We're going to be back in a few minutes with another interview for someone else vying for the Carbon County Commission seat. So stay tuned. There's more coming on Inside Eastern Utah.